hope you will get some useful information about recent .NET news and updates. And yeah, let's make a start from few announcements regarding the conferences, .NET conferences. The one has already passed for today. So, but it was a quite interesting conference for .NET devs from Microsoft. It's Azure Developers for .NET Day 2024. So it happened April 30. So that means all the sessions are available already. Should be at least. They should be available. So here you can see the list of sessions that were conducted during this conference. Like it was probably one day conference and just maybe 8 hours in total. So what we can see here, of course, AI sessions, Copilot sessions, interesting Redis and .NET apps. So Redis has changed the license and I thought it should become less popular. However, there is a Redis session. Yeah, obviously Redis, I think in that case is hosted in Azure. Anyway, quite interesting. Not so maybe not very attractive. However, change data streams with Azure SQL, data API builders on Azure, gRPC on app service. Well, what are the specifics of hosting gRPC in app services, guys? Do you know? Your Azure
Previously, it
consumers.
wasn't working at all.
It
because
wasn't
they
working.
used
Okay.
EASE as a front-end server for app service instances, and recently they switched the whole app service stack to use Kestrel instead,
Oh,
and
well,
it
cool.
allowed them to introduce gRPC support. They
Okay.
spent several years actually to implement it
Okay.
and migrate.
Yeah, that's interesting then, definitely. And the last one is about architecture. It's event-driven architectures. Well, architectures, however, if we read in details, it's about implementing event-driven solutions with .NET and Azure functions to get responsive, scalable applications. Well, might be interesting to check. So yeah, that was the first conference, and it's already passed. And another one is probably the largest development developers event for developers from Microsoft. It's Build that will happen in May, from May 21st till May 23rd. You still have a chance to register and explore the sessions. There is a session catalog available, so you can go and take a look. What is interested for you, of course, there will be a lot. I'm expecting huge amount of AI sessions there.
I'm interested in at least one session I saw in a Twitter discussion.
Which one?
From David Fowler that they had internal demo from developer from EF Core team. He shown native IoT support for EF Core in its current stage, and he said that it was pretty exciting because like EF Core is really reflection heavy framework, and probably it's not in the list yet, or maybe it will be shown on a different session from Roger or from another guy from EF Core team. I don't remember his name, but let's see.
Okay, let's try to find it. Yeah, anyway, you can register and build your scheduled and watch the most interesting sessions.
Maybe this is first one. I will get access. It has IoT compilation mentioned in description.
Yeah, join us to learn about how EF Core is embracing modern pattern session embedding JSON, modern programming paradigms like ahead of time compilation, and non-Microsoft databases. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Well, again, so you can explore the session catalog and see what may be attractive for you and watch. There will be, I believe, there will be the recording for most of the sessions. Especially for these ones that are marked as an online. If it's in person, then it will not be recorded. Yeah, But yeah, in order to watch such sessions, you need to participate in person. So you need to go to this conference in the United States, in Seattle. Okay. And of course, I think we all should watch the keynotes because there will be some of the most important news and updates shared, and all of them during just 1 or 2 hours. So definitely worth to watch. Right. So let's move on and let's explore a few articles regarding the adoption of the recent language, C# language versions and .NET capabilities. So the first article is about refactoring your C# code with primary constructors. This is an article by David Pine, and here he shares some of the patterns that or quick suggestions from the Visual Studio that you can use in order to simplify your code by consuming the C# 12 capability, which is called primary constructors. And yes, so he shows some examples. For example, let's say we have a worker class and we have a logger injected to it through the constructor, so we can like refactor it, like we can run and see how it is refactored. And yeah, here we go. So it became much smaller.
More confusing.
Okay, more confusing, right? We can name it like that, but yes, at least it's shorter, right? So it got rid of this refactoring, got rid of the constructor at all, and now the parameter is declared right on the class declaration level, and there's a variable logger that you can use in your methods. So you don't have to declare like this private read-only methods members, class members. You can just use directly logger in your classes. Yes, so you still can do that, but that's not necessary. Additional things, so if you have like another constructor, so obviously you can declare only one primary constructor, and you still can have a secondary constructor with more arguments, and you can pass the primary argument, the argument from the primary constructor into it. So yeah, some of these refactorings should be available in Visual Studio, so you can start simplifying your code. And yeah, Vladimir, the stage is yours. I know you are a big critic of this feature.
Looking at this code, I'm wondering what it will look like in case if we want to implement primary constructor on a class which inherits another class which has required constructor to be called. How it will look like? Is it allowed at all? Like if you have to call base constructor from primary constructor.
I have no answer on
Seems
that.
Like it's forbidden.
So on our project, we have an interesting situation. We migrated to .NET 8, but we didn't adapt all the C# capabilities because we have a SonarQube that doesn't recognize the
I feel
recent
your pain.
constructions of C#. So I remember when we discussed internally, you mentioned that there is a lot of discussion.
There is a comment from designer of C# language, Matt Torgerson, and he trying to explain why this feature was designed in such a bad way, like for consumers in a bad way. For them, they thought that it was perfectly designed because it was aligned with language design, and it was how it's called.
Yeah. So.
Consistent.
So you mean
it was consistent. Well, yeah, they didn't want to introduce immutability by default for parameters of constructors because there are no any other places in C# language where something is immutable by default when you pass into method.
So it's really interesting to know, guys, what do you think about this primary constructors feature? So do you use them? And if you didn't use, do you like them at all, or dislike?
Looking at comments under this article, they should extend this article to include block where they describe how to disable such refactorings and how to ban primary constructors completely.
Yeah, and it makes
I'm
sense
interested
because
in
since
this personally.
since last Visual Studio update, if you don't have any style cop setup or something like this, Visual Studio aggressively suggesting you to refactor your code to
The modern
to have
capabilities, yeah.
to have this primary constructors.
Yeah, so I agree with Arjun, who shared that it's like a simple way to write simple things, and in most of our applications, web applications, we really have like a class with a single constructor, no complicated inheritance, just parameters that are injected through the API. So I think this is a perfect scenario. You can just declare these parameters on the class declaration level and then just use the parameters in your methods. It's just simple, straightforward, and it works. Yeah, so I think they covered with this feature like the most popular scenarios. Yeah, they didn't cover the advanced scenarios, and I read a lot of thoughts from really strong engineers who are working with .NET for many years, and almost all of them criticized this feature. However, like I should agree that from the happy path or simple passes perspective, this language design feature is quite nice. But yeah, from like more advanced scenarios, that doesn't work very well.
I see comments that in the Kotlin primary constructor really cool. I'm not familiar with it, but maybe they implemented
it looks like
super good.
Microsoft tried to increase the audience, for using this primary constructor, because in the article they describe the difference between primary constructor for records and classes.
Yeah.
And what will be produced, in records it will be produce some public properties, but for classes we won't see it. And it was introduced in last time when a new version of C# was introduced, but they repeat the same, in fresh article. It's strange. Why? It looks like not so popular feature, and they try to increase the popularity of this feature. My opinion,
You mean records like declaration of
I
types?
mean primary constructor at all,
Because obviously you have primary constructor and record, and you can declare a record, the whole record, just with a single statement, right? So you don't need to declare a body. Maybe you are right. It's kind of forcing this feature into our code. Let's see how people will adapt. Interesting, really. Well, it's a complicated discussion. And one more feature of .NET 8 that also worth to pay attention to. So it's building the containers and publishing them just by using .NET 8 capabilities without the necessity to have a Docker CLI. That may simplify your CI/CD builds because now, in order to build a container, all that you need is just .NET SDK. So by using a command .NET publish, you can specify the output that you would like to see your application to be packaged into a container. So you can do that by the option target publish container, and then you can specify some additional parameters to make your to shape your final image. Yeah, so that's quite nice feature.
I do not understand this. So you don't need Docker file here?
You do not need Docker file. Yeah, so there is a
That's
in
strange.
this article there is a by the way, I forgot to share the your list. Let me share that. Yes, you do not need a Docker file at all. So there is
means that you do not learn the the root of the technology. You know how to do this for .NET, but you don't know how it works under the hood. It sounds like
well,
a magic.
yeah.
And
So Docker
MS
file,
builds just
Docker.
know how to do this.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So obviously, Docker file is a script that allows you to build an image layer by layer. So you're declaring your Docker file, and then layer by layer you add something on top, right? So this is all happening directly in MS Build application, but generally speaking, this layer file it's just a tar file. So the image Docker image, final Docker image. It's a tar file. It's archive. So I can argue here. So you don't learn tar when you use a Docker file, right? So do you need to have this knowledge?
Well, this feature might be very useful for newbies by itself because like it simplifies workflow for very beginners. But like personally, I don't like this general movements into simplifying and abstracting things behind .NET concepts, like behind .NET CLI, behind Aspire, behind another stuff. Like
Yeah, but it makes
I'd
the
rather
platform more attractive, So if people can start doing their .NET applications just by downloading a single SDK that is capable to do all the things, it can like build the containers, it can run your web applications, install the certificates, show your nicely looking Aspire dashboards, connect your front end, back end parts, and this is like in a really simple steps. You don't have to install a lot of tools, so the ecosystem is not as fragmented. So everything is concentrated in one SDK. Maybe that's not too bad, right? Yeah, and I understand.
It looks like it's for new developers, but what they do actually is they try to kind of vendor lock-in on you because you have some infrastructure, you have already simplified workflow, it's all .NET based, and you're already in this area, and like for you it will require additional efforts to move out, to extract internals. For me it's like, okay, it's corporate politics, but I'd prefer a way when they not just simplify things but also show how deep you can go with .NET, what stuff you need to learn to understand what's going under the hood, to introduce some deep dive sessions with Docker build with another stuff like recently was done for link provider by Stefan Tapp.
This
is the contact that I'd prefer, and I'd prefer for most of developers, for most of the .NET developers to review, because it will improve the skill set and knowledge of the whole population, not just newbies. Like, okay, we can introduce this new stuff, but it's a controversial move.
Yeah, I agree. So there are a lot of things that Microsoft is doing in order to make the learning curve.
There can be situation as with .NET or with Docker desktop utility, that when it started to be paid, not free, and people without it don't know how to start Docker container because it was super easy.
But you don't need really Docker desktop in order to install Docker CLI. You can install
right.
Docker CLI just for free.
Right.
It's free tool. So Docker desktop, it's a whole distribution.
Yes, I'm saying that it was kind of the same situation when you have a super simplified tool which was allowing you to do any stuff, like one click, start container, download something, drop it, and without it you don't know how to do this.
Yeah,
I believe .NET. No, I believe Microsoft tries to simplify our life. Yeah, with managing, I don't know, containers, because as you know, in Visual Studio you have UI for managing containers. You don't need to leave Visual Studio. You can do it inside of the same for deploying to Azure. Yeah, you just need to click one button, and your whole solution will be deployed. I believe they try to simplify our life, but in some cases it's not a good. On the other hand, yeah, because you won't be aware regarding background job, yeah, what was
what's
done,
happening
etc.
under the hood, right? Yeah, absolutely agree. And there is even a quite significant limitation. How do I install the packages with apt if there is no Docker file? So you can't do that. That's what they tell. So you need to build your own base image with all the apt files and then specify this image when you do the .NET publish. That's not not cool, right? That's not cool. Yeah. Anyway, I think our conclusion here is just they are doing this in order to make getting started things just more straightforward, more simple, and that will work. I do believe that will work. So they even what I like in this article, there is also an example how to build chiseled images. Which are really small images that contains nothing than your application, but quite often you probably need some globalization things, and they are showing here how to add the globalization, for example, particular time zones, scenarios, and so on. Because I personally faced the situation when you build your application, everything works, then you publish your application in a Docker, and then it fails to do particular things during the runtime because of absence of this time zone things. Yeah, so there is an explanation how to mitigate it. So anyway, we have this feature. We may like or dislike, but we have, and we can start consuming it, for example, in our CI/CD pipelines or locally, because we do not need Docker anymore for that. That's well, there are pros and cons, but we do have this. So really quickly, let's go through this one. Building a scalable gateway with .NET for Microsoft AI. So this article is another example of how Microsoft adapts the .NET capabilities internally in order to build their ecosystem. And in this article, there is an example how folks from AI team, one of the AI teams at Microsoft, started using a Kestrel reverse proxy because it's fast, it's called YARP. It's fast, it's cool. It allows things. Well, it's interesting how they describe things like rate limiting. So we have the rate limiting .NET capability, or how they describe this iOptions monitor, the way of reloading dynamically the configuration changes. So things like which we used personally a lot on our project before, but these folks from AI team, they like reinvent .NET for themselves. That's interesting.
Yeah, actually, this yet another reverse proxy is a great example of dog fooding, because according to their own words, YARP is the most adopted project across Microsoft.
Yes, that's true.
And it caused a lot of fixes to go back to .NET itself and to Kestrel to address their issues that they have in Microsoft.
Yeah. Really quickly, this one. So folks from C++ team and who are working on MSVC, they brought a new capability to .NET Core CLR, which is a .NET Core runtime. Well, .NET runtime, yeah, but there is a still core thing, yeah. However, in .NET we do not have core anymore. Anyway, it's called Address Sanitizer developer feature, and there is an explanation. Anyway, it's always nice to see how folks from another programming languages and other teams contribute to .NET runtime to make it faster, like safer, more reliable. So I'm not a C++ specialist, but maybe for those who are familiar with C++, this might be interesting to read and explore. The next one, I really like this news. It's about so everything starts from this tweet of a person who is doing, my understanding, PostgreSQL development, and the post is about the fact that they added C# and F# to support PostgreSQL. It's the best tested and fastest procedural language in the Postgres in our benchmarks. That's what they told. And yeah, it's still on early stage, but what we can see here, yeah, use case example. So what you can do in a Postgres, you can create, for example, a function or stored procedure or something like that, and then you can implement the body of this procedure using the .NET. So it's not a SQL, it's a .NET. So you can use all the .NET capabilities, syntax, or it could be C# or F#, and you can call this through your code. And potentially that unblocks a lot of interesting things. Like, for example, potentially you can build, let's say, a DLL where you have some utility or even business logic methods, and then distribute this DLL. I'm just trying to guess, right? I'm not sure that it's possible or not, but I believe it will be possible eventually. So you can build a DLL with the business logic, and you can distribute it with your application, and you can also push it to your database, Postgre database. And in your stored procedure, you may have a complicated query, right? And in this query, you can utilize some of these business logic calculations, some of these business logic scenarios that actually is inside of your .NET DLL. That's interesting scenarios. So you remember each time quite often, yeah, we probably all had such situations when we tried to build entity framework query, and we were frustrated with the fact that we cannot call a particular business logic method inside our link queries, because obviously it will be all the client-side evaluation. Well, here it seems like there is a way to execute your query, database query, and execute some of the business logic scenarios inside your database. That's interesting, right?
I'm wondering how it works. Does it use core CLR or native AT compilation?
I didn't go such deep.
Does it require .NET Runtime to be installed on Postgres server?
Maybe it's shipped with
maybe
the
it just supports syntax, .NET syntax, but under the hood it doesn't use .NET at all.
Well, it's also the only one way that Maps database started using the native database API, allowing DLLs to run unmodified on a client and server. So, I mean, if according to this tweet, it seems like there should be a full runtime that is capable to execute your DLLs. That's interesting. So I know, Vladimir, you have a Postgre on your project, right? So maybe you will
Unfortunately
try.
not. We had one migration from Postgres to SQL, and we are going to have another migration from Postgres to SQL. So.
Okay. Anyway, so quite interesting news. So
sad story.
I like the way how other projects, other community projects start adapting .NET in different ways and flavors. That's cool. Another one, it's also about .NET adoption. So it's about Ubuntu 24.04, and in this article, Rich Lander just tells that in Ubuntu 24.04, .NET is available since its launch. It's available in Ubuntu repositories, so you can just install your Ubuntu distribution, let's say in WSL, and then there is no need to add a dedicated Microsoft packages, package manager references. You can just update your apt and just install .NET SDK directly. That's cool. Yeah, that's another step.
Yeah, forward. Microsoft will not publish its own images in the Microsoft namespace.
Yeah,
the Docker Hub.
That's right. And the last block, it's actually a set of videos that we really recommend to go through. They are really fancy, interesting. Definitely worth to spend some time and watch them. So the first video, it's about the It's from Steve Sanderson, who is a very strong engineer working at Microsoft. He is responsible for Blazor development. And in his speech on NDC conference, he talked about the next phase of web development, and I really like the way how he presented. So he didn't just concentrate on Blazor. He showed like several modern frameworks like Angular, Vue, some other things, and he compared how they what they offer you today, different pieces like streaming rendering or server-side rendering or client-side rendering, how to tie these all things together. And seems like vast majority of the people who joined to hear to listen his speech were like front-end guys, and he really played with all these frameworks, not only with Blazor. He definitely showed some Blazor, but he also showed some Angular, some React, some Vue, and like all these different capabilities and all these frameworks and what they offer you today. And like this is very cool presentation showing where the web development is moving. Really worth to watch, and like also to explore some of the Blazor capabilities that you may not aware of. If you didn't work with the Blazor, probably not a lot of you had a chance to work with Blazor. So really nice video from Steve Sanderson. Yeah, so the next two videos are about LINQ. So I think we shared that before. There was a session deep dive into LINQ with Steven Taub. Steven is a very strong Microsoft engineer, and in these two videos he actually shares how the LINQ works. He shows step by step how to implement your own kind of LINQ methods and how to improve them. He does this step by step, and he shows all this in the performance benchmarks, how to achieve the same speed. And maybe some of you may think that LINQ is quite slow, so I shouldn't use LINQ. Believe me, you should. So in this article, he shows like on several cases how many optimizations Microsoft brought to LINQ in order to make it faster. For example, if you do some query and under the hood you have an array, there are tons of optimizations for dedicated for arrays, and it works like really fast. You will not be able to produce the code with the same speed, same amount of allocations on your own. So if you can use LINQ, use LINQ, because there are tons of optimizations, and in this series of articles, Steven
like technically you can do it by yourself, but it will require a different level of efforts to put
exactly. So because it's much easier just to
for
use.
LINQ, they even have compiler optimizations that generates very specialized enumerator implementations for you based on patterns that you use and call chains that you use.
Yeah. So for example here, so there is some compiler method. It's a straightforward sum method, and it works like almost two times slower than the default sum LINQ implementation. So yeah, just don't try to optimize the code by avoiding LINQ, because it's unlikely that you will achieve even like the same result. So there's no chances probably, unless you know the .NET on really advanced level. And the last one video and plus an article. It's about Bogus framework. So there is a very nice community project which is called Bogus. This is very helpful if you are building unit tests and or integration tests, and you need to populate your database with some fake data, and you want it to be meaningful, not just random letters and symbols and numbers. So with this Bogus framework, you can really configure the fake data generation rules for different entities. For example, you have an order. You can let's say make an increment for your order ID, because that's what probably you will have in your database. You can randomize particular things. You can, if it's a let's say, name, you can say that it should be generated a meaningful name. If it's an avatar, well, I'm not sure how the avatar will work. Interesting. Probably it will download a kind of or find a kind of random URL and build it for you. Yeah, really cool project. If very useful if you are building an integration test and you need to seed your database, for example, through the entity framework migration.
It can. With this library, you need to be careful because it can generate too realistic, too ideal data, and in production you can have garbage data across your database, and it will blow up once you deploy a new version of your application. So you need to take into consideration what you really have in your database.
That's true. Yeah, and there are a lot of different languages supported because obviously in some cases you may need a quite specific languages. It's not always English, so probably you have Spanish. So there is a different language supports. Not all the languages, but a lot of them are supported. Cool project, definitely worth to check. Nice syntax. Yeah. All right, so it seems like we covered all the links for today. Any final words? No final words.
It was not me. Yeah, final word.
Okay.
I'm not guilty.
Okay, yeah. That's not a Vladimir who is guilty in this design of primary constructors that he didn't like. He doesn't like.
Definitely.
And a lot of people don't like. Okay, so that wasn't Vladimir who designed that. So, and with this sensational news, let's wrap up today's session. Thanks everyone, and good luck, and have a great rest of your day, week, so on. Bye.
Have a nice day.